Out in the American city of El Paso, that's in Texas, where police are reporting multiple fatalities in a shooting at a shopping center.
He's coming from this side. You guys have to run down.
The shooter's that way?
He's over here in the others. Okay? He's in the others. Hey, well,
Video there from inside the shopping center. El Paso police have tweeted that their officers are responding to an active shooting scene and that people have been advised to stay away from the Cielo Vista Mall area. Local media report that 18 people have been shot or injured. And as mentioned earlier, police say a number of them have been killed. El Paso is located in the western part of Texas, near the border with Mexico. You're looking live now at the scene in El Paso. You can see some police there in the foreground. This is still an active shooting scene. What we do know is that multiple people have been killed. We don't know how many shooters police are looking for. We've heard reports of possibly more than one. That's not confirmed. Again, still an active shooting scene. We've got reports of multiple people killed or injured in this shooting at a shopping mall in El Paso, Texas. Early afternoon there in El Paso, a Saturday, of course, a lot of shoppers probably at the mall for back-to-school sales. We will keep you updated here on TRT World as we get more information.
Sir, thank you so much. Lieutenant Governor of Texas, Dan Patrick, on the phone with us. Thanks for joining us today under the circumstances. I'm sorry for that. What are you getting from police? Are you getting any direct information?
We do have the shooter in custody. It's a 21-year-old male, and we have between 15 and 20 casualties. We don't know the number of fatalities. And I just can only thank our law enforcement, El Paso PD, and our Department of Public Safety aircraft. Every available asset came in and apprehended the shooter as quickly as possible after this terrible day in El Paso.
Lieutenant Governor, you know, it's a Saturday afternoon. It looks like a sunny day out there in El Paso. You know, this happens so frequently these days, unfortunately, that people do wonder if it's ever going to happen to them. Talk about this community. Talk about this area. Just give us kind of that overview of this area where this happened, if you can, and the community and the type of people there.
Well, El Paso is just a fabulous town, like all of Texas. I mean, Texans are great everywhere. And it's a very close-knit community. It's a heavy military community because of the fort, one of our largest bases close by. This is a community that, quite frankly, is one of the safest in the country. You know, I was on with Laura Ingraham on one of her shows from there when Donald Trump and Beto O'Rourke were both having rallies there several months ago. And one of the points we made is that El Paso is one of the safest places in the country, one of the safest cities. And so you never expect it to happen to you. And obviously our hearts go out to these families. The shooting victims span the number, you know, a wide range of ages, as that we understand at this point, from young to older. And they're just out on a normal Saturday like people are who are watching your show right now or all around the country on a typical Saturday afternoon. You know, in this case, going to Walmart to shop or wherever they are. And it's heartbreaking. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. And when I got the call, you know, as soon as it happened, you know, my heart just sank again. You know, we've had that shooting at Santa Fe Springs, and we had the shooting at our church in the last couple of years, and it's heartbreaking every time.
People hate hearing these stories. We hate covering these stories, and we have to cover them too often. Sir, I want to just go back to some of the information you gave us. You say you have one person in custody, a 21-year-old male, and you said between 15 and 20 casualties, but you're not certain on the number of fatalities. So it sounds like you have 15 to 20 people shot. You're not sure how many of them have been killed.
That's correct. We don't have that. We don't have that information that we're prepared to release at this time.
What else, if anything, can you tell us about the 21-year-old man you have in custody? Have you learned anything about a potential motive?
At this point, I would direct you to El Paso PD and let them release that information as they decide to, and I would make them your point of contact. But the 21-year-old is in custody, and again, law enforcement did an amazing thing. It just did an amazing thing. As your guest, I just heard a little bit of your previous guest talking about the crime scene, and you know, when there's one or two people shot, you can imagine the size of this crime scene, and this will be an investigation that will take some time. This. I was looking at a story recently. I just saw in the last couple of days where Antifa is posting. They want to come to El Paso and do a 10-day siege. Clear message to Antifa: stay out of El Paso, stay out of Texas, basically. But we don't need them coming in on September 1st. We didn't need them to begin with before this happened. But I would say to Antifa, scratch Texas off your map and don't come in. It is not the time and place for them to come at any time, but particularly in the aftermath of what's just happening in El Paso. So Antifa, message from the Lieutenant Governor: stay out of Texas.
Lieutenant Governor, we had on a guest earlier, a former special agent in charge of ATF, who said, he sees a real problem. He says a societal damage of mass narcissism, and that, you have so many copycats, you have so many people who just don't see a reason to live, and so they think that, they're going to go out in a blaze of glory by doing something like this. It's going to be on social media. Their name is going to be known, et cetera, et cetera. You can take your pick there of which one. How much of a problem is this today, and how do we get a grip on this situation that seems to be increasing?
Well, that would be for psychologists and specialists in law enforcement. They would be the experts in this field. I will tell you that after the school shooting in Santa Fe, that Governor Abbott and I participated in 3 days of roundtable discussions with all of the experts, and we learned a lot from that. And there are profiles to these types of shooters, and we'll see once we learn more about this shooter, this alleged shooter, that we'll find out what profile he fits. But we clearly live in an age where copycat crimes and trying to be a star on the internet and bring attention to yourself are a lot to do with a lot of what happens today. But I'll withhold judgment until we get more information on the shooter, or how he fits the profile of these other shooters. But it's a sad day in Texas, and but as Texans always do, they stand strong. El Paso will stand strong. Their mayor will stand strong. Law enforcement will stand strong. Their citizens will rally. And in Texas, when we drop to our knees, it's in prayer, not because we give up. And we're never going to give up to the shooters, never give up to the lawbreakers. And we pray to God and for this family and for those involved in the shooting. Thank you for allowing me to be on for a moment. That's all I have.
Sir,
really, at this point.
Dan Patrick, Lieutenant Governor of Texas, thank you so much for your time.
Good afternoon. An update now on that deadly shooting near a busy shopping mall in El Paso, Texas. It happened at a Walmart near Cielo Vista Mall this morning about 10 a.m. local time. The scene is about 7 miles from downtown El Paso. Here is what we know at this hour. NBC News has learned that at least 18 people have been killed. One suspect is in custody, 21-year-old Patrick Crucius, a resident of the Dallas area. Police do not believe there are any other shooters or suspects on the loose. President Trump has been briefed, is monitoring the situation along with Texas Governor Abbott. It has been a chaotic and chilling scene. Witnesses say they heard pops of gunfire, people screaming and running to get out or hide in the store. Initial reports say the gunman was using a rifle, and police at this hour still warning residents to stay away from the mall and the Walmart area. Authorities got on the scene quickly. SWAT, Border Patrol agents, and FBI also responding. 18 people, at least, lost their lives in a horrific shooting in El Paso, Texas. We'll have much more on NBC Nightly News. For now, I'm Jose Diaz-Balart reporting from New York.
Now to a Fox News alert. You're looking alive at El Paso, Texas, where we're following reports of an active shooter situation. The police department there tweeting a few moments ago that, quote, the scene is still active, and warning folks near the Cielo Vista Mall area to steer clear. We're going to continue watching this story as it develops. Leland, as you mentioned earlier, still precious few facts known.
One fact that we're getting right now is we're watching a police officer, and it looks like they are pulling out some of their larger weapons from an unmarked car there at the back of this mall. KTSM, which is the local NBC affiliate, now reporting that 18 people were shot inside the Walmart. Extent of their injuries unknown at the time. As we watch this, and you cover enough of these, you learn to read a little bit of the body language of the police. We don't see anybody running. We don't see weapons at the ready necessarily and up. We don't see more SWAT teams coming in, etc. You wonder at this time if police believe they have part of this contained or at least understand what happened and aren't calling in more units. It's unclear where the Walmart that the NBC station is talking about is in relation to the entrance to the mall that would appear as though we're looking at on our screen. But this situation is certainly changing now in the border town of El Paso. This began unfolding at about noon Central Time. So, Jillian, you'd imagine families out shopping. They're on a Saturday afternoon getting groceries in the summer, getting ready for a wonderful weekend. And this mall sits just about halfway between the Mexico-U.S. border in El Paso and the airport.
Looking at the live photos of the parking lot outside of the Walmart and the Cielo Vista Mall area, it looks like a lot of cars parked there. You know, middle of the day, a bright, sunny Saturday. You got to think that a lot of families headed to the mall to take care of business, to get outside away from the heat, maybe to take their families there for an afternoon of some fun and shopping. This is certainly not what any of those folks were imagining for today, for this Saturday.
Yeah, we have access to the El Paso police radio tapes. We have some producers listening to those, and we try to do that in these situations. Listen to them, try to glean what information we can, and also sort of check to see what's happened on those tapes before we put them on air. But we're working on those as well. I don't know if we have control over this camera or can talk to the photographer, but sometimes if they could pan a little bit to the left. We don't have any control over this picture, but we saw a number of officers. Some appeared to be in pretty casual clothes, shorts and T-shirts with bulletproof vests over them, walking towards the back entrances of this mall. The NBC affiliate reporting just this, that there was 18 people shot. The extent of their injuries is unknown. And obviously, it's going to take a while to figure out how long this could go on before we have more information. We bring back Ted Williams, former D.C. homicide detective and federal agent. Ted, clearly things have changed since we last talked. I don't know if you can see a television, but what do you make of the posture of police? We don't see SWAT teams lining up. We don't see officers and groups running with weapons up and at the ready. The urgency seems to have been pulled back a little bit, although we don't know if this is the main scene.
Well, I'm not actually able to view the scene, but I can tell you this. If you do not see that kind of activity, it could very well be more likely than not that the shooter or shooters are down. I say that not having as much information as I would like to have, but normally, if in fact it was still a very active scene, you would find the SWAT teams in place, and it appears as though law enforcement seems to be in a lax state from what you've been able to see and glean. So therefore, it's more likely than not that the law enforcement on that scene are now in control of that scene. And but the tragedy is, from what I've been told, the amount of people who are alleged to have been shot, that's clearly a tragedy.
So, Ted, KTSM is reporting that the shooter, they're confirming the shooter shot at 18 people. What does that number mean to you? What does it tell you?
Oh, my God. It sounds like and I'm left to speculate, but it sounds like it could very well have come from a semi-automatic weapon, because it's very difficult, even in a store like Walmart, to shoot that many people if that many people have been shot.
Ted, we're up against the top of the hour now, noon Mountain Time in El Paso, Texas, where we understand that, at least according to our affiliates, 18 people have been shot inside a local Walmart there on a Sunday morning, when you know so many people headed out with their families this morning and with their loved ones to get ready for the weekend and to do their weekly shopping. We're going to continue to follow the news and the developments from New York.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, who joins us now. Thank you so much, Mr. Paxton, for joining us. What more can you tell us?
Well, I mean, obviously we're gathering information. Local PD is involved in interviewing the shooter right now.
And so there's a lot of information being gathered that we don't know. The public's not going to know. I'm not even going to know yet because I'm not in the room. But that's obviously a critical interview and will hopefully provide the information that we often don't get, because in most cases it seems like these shooters either take their own life or their life is taken by a police officer or somebody else that has a weapon.
Was there any intel? Did police know that something like this could be coming?
So far, I don't think so. But that's obviously something that they're going to know more about after the interview, hopefully. And again, that's a valuable piece of information to be able to interview the shooter. That's just something we just don't have that opportunity.
Of course. And can you confirm any fatalities?
The number is moving, and so I don't want to say a number because that number could change at any moment. Obviously, there are people in the hospital that are being treated, and so it's hard to pin down a number because we don't know the status of every person.
At this hour, sir, how many would you say are dead?
I don't want to say because the number has literally kept changing. I know it's between probably 15 and 20, but that number, like I said, can change in a minute.
Between 15 or 20 people dead?
That is my understanding.
This isn't the first shooting like this that's happened in the state of Texas, Mr. Paxton. You're the Attorney General. Does this state need gun control?
You know, I wish that gun control, if I thought it would work, I don't think that's something that would actually work, because people that are doing this are not going to obey gun laws. This guy just violated every law in the book. He went in and killed a bunch of people. Having a gun law, I don't think would have prevented him from violating another law. So in most cases, it's better if law-abiding citizens have the opportunity to defend themselves. And that certainly was true in Sulphur Springs, where the shooter was actually shot by somebody with a weapon. It wasn't by law enforcement. So if that worked, we might consider it, but I doubt that would be a solution to somebody who's willing to kill people.
30,000 Americans have lost their lives in the past year alone over gun violence. How do we decrease that number?
I think we have to educate people as to how to protect themselves. For instance, in schools, protecting our schools, which is something Texas is trying to do. And I think that I actually think it's a good idea for people to be aware and also be able to defend themselves, because oftentimes law enforcement can't be there in time. And so if people have the ability to defend themselves, then there's less likelihood of large numbers of people being killed.
If it is determined that this was somehow a particular group of people who were targeted, or race or ethnicity, what would you say needs to be done to protect those people?
Well, I mean, obviously that's horrible. But any kind of shooting is horrible for whatever crazy reason this guy had. There's really no good reason for the gunning down of innocent people.
But how do you protect those people, Attorney General?
I just the way I said, I think you have to have a state in cases like schools, finding ways to provide more safety, whether that's through a law enforcement person at the school, providing more deterrence to getting in. But in cases where it's out at a shopping center, I think you have to educate the public that they have to be aware and they have to be potentially ready to defend themselves, and if not defend themselves, find a way to be aware and escape.
And in the state of Texas, if you have Texas citizens who just don't feel safe because they may feel that they're targeted, what's your advice to them today?
Again, I think it's being ready to defend yourself. I mean, we have laws in the state that allow people to carry, and if there's a crazy shooter like this who is willing to gun down people, there's no way that law enforcement can be everywhere at every moment to protect everybody. So the best way is to be prepared to defend yourself.
And as far as it comes to mental health, what needs to be done to provide more mental health to folks around this country?
Well, I think we definitely need to put more resources into that, both at the state level and the federal level. That's clear that is a problem, not just with shootings, but in all kinds of areas of our lives. I think it's about funding, and it's about figuring out the best way to treat people that have these issues.
And right now, I want to know, what is your biggest concern? As police say this area has been secured, that they believe it is in control, that there's no imminent threat right now. What is your biggest concern for the state of Texas right now?
I can tell you my biggest concern is for the families, and that's why I have a person already down there. We have a crime victims assistance fund that will help these people with counseling, with medical issues, with lodging. And so I already have somebody down there. I'll have somebody else down there tomorrow. And we're going to be available to help these people in the best way that we can after such a horrible tragedy.
When the shooting began, shortly after, a gentleman called in, an eyewitness, who said he witnessed an elderly woman being dragged out because she was unresponsive, and the person accompanying them wanted to get her help. There is word that a 4-month-old baby could potentially be among the injured. What do you say when you hear about situations like this and the injured who were just in the wrong place at the wrong time?
Look, it breaks my heart because obviously we all would be devastated if we had family members that were in that situation. And so we can definitely feel the pain of the people that have lost loved ones and friends. And it's I don't know, it's devastating. It's painful.
Mm. I want to thank you very much, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, for joining us.
Thanks for having me on, and just keep us in your prayers. Thank you.
We certainly will. We certainly will. Thank you very much, Mr. Paxton.
Everybody hands up, fuck you! Go, go, go! Come on! Hands up, hands up! Follow the line out there.
Over here. That way. That way. Yeah, that way. No, you can't go to your cart. You gotta go that way.
And good afternoon. We are live from ABC News headquarters in New York. We interrupt regular programming to bring you breaking news out of Texas. Reports of a mass shooting at the Cielo Vista Mall in El Paso. Police say several people have been killed, numerous injuries at this time. At least one person is in custody. Officials warning the public to stay away from the area and refrain from posting first responder activity on social media. This video just coming into our newsroom now showing some of the pandemonium inside of that mall. From what we understand, the mall was filled with people in various stores when the shooting started. We do know at this point that ATF is en route to assist, and police near the scene reporting they are on lockdown. We want to turn now to Pierre Thomas, who has been monitoring the developments from Washington and speaking with his sources at the federal level. Pierre, what can you tell us?
Tom, it's a very dangerous situation. Federal authorities were initially told that there might be, again, fog of war potential, multiple shooters. That's why there's so much concern about the first responders, even though they may have reports, again, of a person in custody. Law enforcement officials were concerned, again, that there were multiple shooters. Also, I was told by a number of sources that there were multiple people injured. They were concerned about giving an actual number because it was so early in the situation. But again, the possibility of multiple shooters and possibility of multiple people injured. We expect that the federal authorities will be joining the local authorities to help assess the situation, give them support as needed. As you reported, ATF is on the scene. We expect the FBI and IPS to participate as well. Again, these situations have been very much on the mind of local and federal law enforcement recently because of the spate of active shooter incidents we've been having across the country. One organization that monitors things say that we've had more than 200 such incidents so far this year where more than 4 people have been shot in a single setting. So, Tom, this is an ongoing situation, very dangerous, and unfortunately part of a trend that we're seeing nationally.
And, Pierre, as you were reporting this, we were seeing the images of some of those injured, people being taken basically on rolling tables through the mall, people covered in blood. We know that, I know you mentioned that they didn't want to give an exact number, but some of the initial reports we were hearing that more than a dozen people were injured. We see a woman here clearly. She's covered in blood here, and this is just one of the many victims we understand at this shooting. This is an ongoing situation right now, Pierre, but let's talk about where this gunman targeted. It's a mall. There's a Walmart there. there. It's a summer Saturday. The mall was filled with people, and as we see more images coming in from eyewitnesses, mall police, El Paso police running through the mall. Clearly, there were several people here, several targets, Pierre.
Well, this is a concern. This is what one would call a soft target. Again, we know nothing about motive. It could be workplace. It could be terrorism. It could be any number of things. We just don't know yet. But in these situations with the law enforcement, their standard protocol now is to find the shooter or shooters and to prevent more carnage. And then they try to get the first responders in there to assist those who have been injured. But it's a nightmare scenario. You have a Saturday morning, people are shopping, potentially getting prepared for back to school and all sorts of things, and someone shows up with a gun. It is the scenario that law enforcement, unfortunately, they train for, but it is a situation that is extremely dangerous, and I can only imagine those images that you're seeing, Tom.
All right, Pierre Thomas reporting for us. Again, if you're just tuning in, we have been following this breaking news out of El Paso, Texas. There has been a deadly mall shooting. Several people have been killed. Dozens of people have been injured. We have seen people covered in blood being taken on dollies throughout the mall. Again, this shooting happening just moments ago at a mall in El Paso. We are going to have much more on this throughout the day. More details, of course, as they come in. And be sure to join us on World News later tonight. All updates throughout the hours at abcnews.com. I'm Tom Yamas in New York. Thank you for watching.
Terrified shoppers take cover as gunshots are fired in a West Texas mall. The Cielo Vista shopping complex in El Paso is eerily empty. One eyewitness films from inside a store as police marksmen hunt down a gunman. They were called to the scene after reports of one or possibly multiple shooters and a number of seriously injured victims.
Keep going, keep going, keep going. Hands up, hands up.
Shoppers were quickly evacuated from the building, their hands in the air as they ran to safety. Police have now taken a suspect into custody and have confirmed they're dealing with multiple victims.
This is a large crime scene, a large area, so we are systematically going through it and making sure that anybody in the area, number one, we're ruling out that no one is a suspect, and we're also making sure that those people that were separated or hurt are getting the care that they need.
As emergency services took wounded victims to hospital, one of the first politicians to respond was El Paso-born U.S. Democratic hopeful Beto O'Rourke, who called the shooting truly heartbreaking.
I'm incredibly saddened, and it is very hard to think about this. But I'll tell you, El Paso is the strongest place in the world. This community is going to come together. I'm going back there right now to be with my family and to be with my hometown.
Tonight, there's still no indication of what the attackers' motive was or why they chose to open fire on shoppers in El Paso. Martha Fairley, ITV News.
Several people have been killed in a shooting near a shopping centre in Texas. There were reports of multiple gunmen using military-style weapons. Police haven't ruled out that so far, but so many have only arrested one suspect.
At this second in time, we have one person in custody. We won't rule out multiple until we have a concrete investigation based on all the facts and investigation of the scene. So it can change.
Well, Ali joins me now in the studio with the latest. Ali, this is very much an evolving situation. We're just hearing the latest from the authorities there. What more can you tell us?
Yeah, that's right. So police were called to Cielo Vista shopping mall in El Paso. This is very near the Mexican border in the east of Texas. Now, there were reports there was an active shooter. Police still saying that this is an ongoing active situation. They say they have reports of multiple shooters on their Twitter. Local broadcasters reporting that there have been multiple fatalities. Now, we don't know the exact numbers yet. As you said there, we believe at least 7 people. But what we do know is that there has been a considerable response from the authorities, a considerable police presence. We know that the mall was evacuated. We know that the public had been urged to stay away from the area. Unsurprisingly, this has all caused a lot of concern and a lot of upset as the US faces up to yet another shooting. And here was the response from the former Texan Congressman Beto O'Rourke.
There's a lot of injury, a lot of suffering in El Paso right now. I'm incredibly saddened, and it is very hard to think about this. But I'll tell you, El Paso is the strongest place in the world. This community is going to come together. I'm going back there right now to be with my family and to be with my hometown.
Response from the mayor as well this evening.
Yeah, that's right. He's been tweeting. He's just said, I'll read you briefly what he said. My condolences and prayers go out to all of El Paso as we mourn those impacted by this tragedy. Now, to give you a bit more detail, Cielo Vista Shopping Mall, it's the largest shopping mall, the largest of 3 shopping malls in the area. I'm sure that on a Saturday afternoon, this would in all likelihood have been a busy place for shoppers on a Saturday, a metropolitan built-up part of the city. And of course, this comes less than a week after a gunman killed 3 people at a food festival in Northern California before shooting himself. So for now, details about this latest shooting still coming to light, but we know that officers are warning people to stay away from the area this evening.
These are live pictures that we're just getting into us here at Sky News Centre. We understand as well that the President has been informed. He's been in touch with the Attorney General for Texas as well. So all of the authorities take this incredibly seriously. And at the moment, unconfirmed numbers, but at least 1 suspect in custody. Ali Fortescue, thanks very much indeed.